It's been 16 years since Annaduff and Gortletteragh did battle in a senior championship final, and this weekend on Saturday evening in Avantcard Park, Sean McDermott, both sides will do battle once again, and we're joined by representatives from both clubs. I'd like to welcome Donal Fox. We'll go in order of seniority. Donal Fox from Annaduff and Derek Kelleher from Gortletteragh. You're very welcome, boys.
Thanks, Breifne. Cheers for that.
Let's start, Donal, with yourself. Obviously, we'll give you a bit of a proper introduction, but you're a long-established administrator and everything within the county, I suppose. Tell us a bit about your own GAA credentials.
Oh, GAA credentials. Well, I've been a member of Annaduff GAA Club for a long time, obviously, and I'm secretary and treasurer and chairman at one stage. And I have been also vice chairman, among other things, and manage the team and selector and that kind of stuff. That's where my kind of, if you like, GAA pedigree in terms of being involved with the club has been, and it's been, I've often said it, that my involvement in Annaduff GAA Club is one of the best things I've ever done, so I'm very honoured and proud to be a member of it.
You're one of the first, I suppose, over the last 20 years, you're one of the first faces that come to my mind when I think of Annaduff GAA, but one of those across in Gortletteragh would be yourself. Obviously, Derek, you've been a player and everything involved with Gortletteragh over the years, but also with distinction with Leitrim along the lines too. Talk to me about 2004 and that final, because obviously it wasn't your day on the day it went to Annaduff. What's your memories of being involved in that team?
Well, Breifne, it's only last week with a lot of counselling that I've actually learned to forget about that. But from recollection, look at, I tell you, getting into a county final number one for the teams even this weekend, it's a massive achievement for any team to get in. It was the same in 2004 when Annaduff and Gortletteragh got there, because great rivalry in a county final. To march behind the band it'd get the hair standing on the back of your neck. It's the proudest moment, and for your family, friends, the whole club, it knits a club together. So look at, I suppose, my earliest memory of it was, I think the referee came over to talk to Martin Fontaine and God rest him, Stephen Durrigan, before the ball was thrown in at all. So that kind of set the scene for the game. But look at, it was a hard fought game. Annaduff really, from the half back line, they pushed everything forward and they caught us on the hop. I suppose Gortletteragh quite possibly were going in maybe favourites into the game, even because we were there in 2000, even though we had lost it, and with the amount of county players that we would have had. But Annaduff under Eugene, like when they got into the game, they held the head and they annoyed us. What you have to do in a football field, they changed the way that we were thinking about the game and got into our heads, and they played excellent football and they got the scores. Like Tom McNavola scored 5 points, Ray got 2, Stephen Durrigan, God rest him, he scored 3 points for Gortletteragh. But when you have somebody scoring 5 points, you know, it's very hard to beat. Do you know? So it was a good day. Very bad that evening. I had bought a house and I was ready to move into it in Drumsna, and I rented for 3 months extra in Carrick, and still when I moved in 2 months after it, I heard about it for the next 10 years. But look, such is life.
Donal, from your point of view, very different experience.
It was the most fabulous day. I remember it so well, because Annaduff really had only won a senior championship in 1928 before that. Nobody remembered that, really, except there was one man still alive who had actually played, but Tommy Daly. But I remember it well because it was a day of such joy for us, and we were fortunate in a way to have got to it because we were lucky at one point in qualifying. But after that, our fellas really took off, and 2 good wins coming into the final. And I'd nearly dispute what Derek says about who was the favourites or who wasn't, because I think that logically Annaduff were the better team. They were much higher up in the league at the time and were well entitled to their victory. And I think what's interesting, and he says something there about Ray and Tom McNavola, who of course were both stars that day, as was David McHugh, who's the team sponsor at the moment, who's in London. But the great thing about that was that Ray Cox was flying that day. He was extraordinary. He was speedy, pace, he had accuracy, he had everything. And I think Gortletteragh didn't like to see him coming. And it is great to see that here we are 16 years later, that Ray is being talked about, playing probably some of the best football in his life, and being an inspiration to all the younger fellas on our team. And that Ronan McCormack, who was midfield that day, is the sub who could well see action before this day is out.
Yeah, because there's a lot of players I know on the Gortletteragh side. Cathal McCran would fill that, and possibly one or two others. So what's the squad like now compared to 16 years ago? Is there many stragglers still left? You haven't been asked to lace up the boots yet.
Cathal, no. I'm actually getting to the stage I'm forgetting how to tie my shoelaces. Never mind about go out and play football. But look at Cathal McCran. Sure, we would have seen in a semi-final. I know the mark had come in 2 years ago, was it? And a lot of teams are kind of struggling with it because players aren't thinking. And it's one thing about being a good footballer and have skill at everything at speed, but sometimes you have to teach how to slow down, because in regards to the mark, that's in the Drumahare game. Cathal came in, 2 marks, steadied the game. Ray Cox called his mark. There's 2 lads of the same vintage. There was nobody else to call the mark. Maybe Sean McNabola might have called one in the semi-final. But it was the older guys that had the experience, that were watching the game, and they knew what their next move was, that if they caught it, they stood, unless it was open for them to go. Whereas some of the younger crew, they seem to take it and they get a bit excited and they'll go, but there's too many players, because we tighten up with sweepers this weather. So when you turn around, you're faced with a wall. So when you get in a mark, and look at a county final could be decided on marks, to be honest with you, frees and marks. Because I know Annaduff coming into the semi-final, I think they'd only scored 1 goal in the championship, and then all of a sudden within 7 minutes they have 3 of them. Do you know what I mean? And that's a hard thing. I know Carrigallen had come back, but it's very hard for players, if you go 9 points or 10 points ahead within 10 minutes, to actually start to focus that we're actually 0-0 now and we have to go out and get more scores. It's very, very hard.
Yeah, Donal, from your point of view, obviously you got those 3 early goals in the first 8 or 9 minutes in the semi-final. One of them was a gift, let's be honest about it.
But quick thinking.
Absolutely. But at the same time, for the rest of the game, you nearly blew that lead.
Early scores. If scores come very early, they can be actually quite a difficult problem for a team that gets them. All of a sudden, here we were, 7-8 minutes gone, 3 goals, this game is over. Right? Everybody thinks that, and then there's the failure then to add on a couple of points to sort of nail that down. It doesn't take that much if a team is, and Carrigallen were never out of the game, ever. They were unfortunate, hadn't got a couple of scores. They were certainly still in it. They were rocked by those scores, but they were able to just edge back, and then got their 2 goals in the second half that brought the game completely alive. 1994, when Leitrim won the Connacht Championship, you will remember.
Seamus Quinn and Martin McHugh came together and dropped the ball in the back of the net.
Correct.
And there's
very early on. But it's the right time to concede a goal early on, because you have time to get back into the game, and Carrigallen had time to get back into the game.
Of course, you would have experience of that as well, Derek. I'm going to accuse you of being involved in the game. You may or may not have been the semi-final in 2000-ish, 2001 maybe, with Leitrim? Against Roscommon, where
playing against Roscommon in the Hides.
They scored 3 goals in the first 7 minutes as well.
Well, we wanted to lull them into a false sense of security, to be honest with you. And then when we had them lulled in, we kind of didn't know what to do after that, but it worked, do you know? So we kind of came back, but that was, we were talking, I suppose, earlier on about rivalry and all that sort of stuff. Like the Leitrim Roscommon thing is like something that you'll never experience, do you know what I mean? It's kind of bred in that there's that real, I won't call it hate, but it's very close to it. But then still at the end of the day, you'd lift a man off the ground when the game is over. Like it's a sporting rivalry and a bit of fun outside of that. So look at
we might have that chat with Colin Regan from that game as well. We'll gloss over that.
I didn't see anything.
Nobody saw it except RT that evening. In terms of, I suppose, the mood in the camps coming into the weekend, what's it like? I suppose you're not really in Annaduff at the moment, Donal. You don't live in Annaduff anymore.
No, but I always make the joke that I'm in it all the time, but I'm not out in it. So, because I'm there most evenings.
What's the mood though? Because it's been a tough couple of years for Annaduff. You've been thereabouts at intermediate level.
Well, if you go back, I think Annaduff came down, lost our senior status in 2017, having been a senior club from 2001, which was a significant length of time. The painful part of that was we were relegated by our mutual neighbours, ourselves and yourselves, Derek and Bornacoola, and that actually added to the pain of it. But we did get to the final in 18. Could, but probably shouldn't have won, even though it went to the replay. Lost in last year to the eventual winners, Leitrim GAA. I think there's there's cautious optimism. I think that was probably the best way to put it. I think there would be a general thought among the public that maybe Gortletteragh are the better team, even though we beat them in the group stages. It was a very nip and tuck game, and Gortletteragh were clearly missing players, important players. They'll be back. I think Annaduff people are quietly optimistic if we can get our team on the field.
What's your thoughts, Derek? Agree with that? You think it's going to be Gortletteragh day?
Well,
Revenge for 16 years ago?
I don't think it's about revenge anymore, because you have only one player that would have been involved. I suppose from a personal point of view, it's not revenge, but you're torn a bit. As much as delighted to see Annaduff get into a county final, because it adds something. Lived there for 14 or 15 years, managed them years ago, and all of them players are still there, and they're very nice fellas. They're willing to do whatever you ask them to do. The same as with Gortletteragh now at the minute. So like a lot of them players, they don't know each other. Like we used to know each other years ago. It's not as close knit as it was, I suppose, with technology, all that sort of stuff going on. The world is a bigger spot, but then we would be confident, to be honest. We played a game against Dromahare that the second half of it and the extra time was probably some of the best football that I would have seen from a Gortletteragh team since Annaduff bet us in the county final. Now, we didn't turn up that day in 2004, but then we played football that day. We didn't play football several other days. So it's really about, and it's the old cliche, it's all on the day. Do you know what I mean? Like there's I don't think Annaduff will fear Gortletteragh, or Gortletteragh will fear Annaduff.
I think that's
but
true.
Whoever turns up and plays football, because there's football to be played, and if Gortletteragh played a better football, they'll win. If Annaduff played a better football, they'll come out on top. That's really simple as that.
Let's talk about the biggest issue in the room this year in terms of football in general and life in general, and it's the coronavirus and the impact it's had on our sports. Unfortunately, on Saturday evening we'll only have 100 from each side in support. And what's the search for tickets like? Have you both managed to get your hands on the golden passes?
Donal?
The laugh is because we were joking earlier on, but I won't go into too much detail, but I've been fortunate to get one, and I really didn't think I would, given that players' families and other people it is agreed that they would get them. So I've been fortunate, and I'm glad that I'll be there. Although I had reconciled myself to the fact that I was going to be trying to watch it on live stream, and hope for the best after that, and keep my attention to myself, and I'll be pacing out here now, as I do with kind of a certain amount of anxiety.
Derek?
Yeah, look, I suppose both clubs and the four clubs at the weekend have been put in a position that's I'd sometimes look at it as unfair, but there's an unfair situation that there's only 200 or 100 from each club, and that both clubs are trying to do it as fair as they can.
That's right.
Like you can't make a great situation out of a bad one overnight. So in regards to like club members got tickets, I paid up members. Some people wouldn't have paid membership. Wasn't really the biggest thing for a long time. But it really comes to fruition now that you have your membership paid, that you get to an intermediate final and you're offered your ticket. You're not scouring the countryside asking here, there and ever and hoping for a draw. So like Annaduff have great membership, we need to improve our membership. We have numbers, but we need to get money in. Clubs aren't going to run themselves. Mm-hmm. I know a great thing at the minute that both clubs are doing with the sponsor a player. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time I've seen it, and I was going, okay, right, €100 sponsor for a player. It's the only avenue to actually bring in money to pay for the physios, to pay for the footballs, to pay for everything that keeps it going. We listen to people talking about inter-county football. They may not be a championship because we can't afford to pay expenses. But in club football, it takes 40, 50, 60,000 a year for the whole lot, underage the whole way up, that people don't realise, because children and adults, they'll pay with their membership at the start of the year. There's not one more penny asked.
Obliged. They're not obliged.
They're not obliged to pay anything for the rest of the year. We have rugby, we have soccer, we have different sports. You pay every day when you go, and sometimes, and a lot of the time, there's more thought of them. and the GAA are looking for X, Y, and Z. So we need to really realise that if we're giving money, it's for our membership to bring the club on. Because like in Leitrim for years, it was mass and football, and maybe the Martin odd time. That was about it.
He's not mentioning the pub, you know.
No,
the pub was definitely in there as well.
Well, who would have ever thought that, we'll say a year ago, that we would have been told that the pubs would be closed?
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? We're talking about 100 people from each side going to watch a game. We're in extraordinary times, and we're possibly coming towards a second wave of the coronavirus. But nobody has a textbook on this sort of stuff. Nobody has it.
Is it a testament to the county board who get grief all the time? Let's be honest. Every time something's wrong or someone can't get their hands on whatever they're looking for or fixtures scheduled, it's always blamed the county board. They're an easy target at times from all angles: supporters, clubs, county players, the lot. Is it a credit that it's run off so smoothly with so little incident to the handful of people, and we're probably talking a couple of dozen volunteers here, actually make that happen?
I think it is, and I think credit is where credit is due. I mean, the county board has done a great job on all of this in very, very difficult circumstances. And I think that one of the interesting things about it is that there's been a general kind of acceptance that the standard of football has been very, very good. And I think players are enjoying it, maybe to an extent that they mightn't have enjoyed a big, long, heavy year. Because at this time of the year and other times it might be just beginning to wilt a wee bit. But no, I think there's a freshness too. I think that we can learn a certain amount of lessons from it. I would want to say something that what Derek mentioned about clubs, GAA clubs, both our clubs, and I think we both agree on this, and every club in County Leitrim, is they are at the heart of our communities. In some ways we kind of are the representation, the teams that goes out in the field are the representation of the people of the parishes that we're from. And there's an intense pride and an intense devotion to those clubs from the people who are members and are involved, and you'll see it with colours and flags and best wishes to so and so and good luck to so and so. And there's a funny little one, I have to say, that's on the N4, and it says COVID-19 Annaduff 20.
I drove by it the other day and actually had a little laugh about it. Someone in the car didn't get it, we had to explain it, but it was what it was. They weren't football fans, so they were like, I have no idea what that is. What's 1920 got to do with anything? In terms of the weekend though, I suppose, what can we expect from people maybe who are lucky enough to get a ticket or more likely to actually be watching this on the live stream from home? What can we expect in terms of the game? Let's start with you, Derek.
I suppose it's, what way would you put it? We've watched semi-finals. It's a little bit eerie. Commentary good to get the game going, but when you have no crowd at a game, the players, from talking to them, to be honest, they seem happy enough. There's a little bit less pressure. Maybe that's where the football is coming from. Mm-hmm. That thing of some players soak in what the annoyance, or the, as I like to call it, football schizophrenics that are in the crowd that go mental and then go to mass. Do you know? So that pressure is off, and to be honest, as Donal has said, like, some of the standard of football has been brilliant. Yeah. There hasn't been injuries, we haven't seen cramp. It just goes to show that, and I would have seen it on the WhatsApp groups during the lockdown, and players putting up that they were in the gym and everybody doing it. And I said, now this will be interesting to see when we go out to start training. You'll know who was training and who wasn't. And it's absolutely amazing that there was nobody lagging behind. You thought that there'd be some that were hiding. There was nobody hiding. I think from any club, like, because it's improved as it has gone on. And the whole thing that's happening at the minute, the young players and the older lads and the managers in the clubs, they realise that we're rural and we need this. And Leitrim needs it. Because, like, Leitrim made the call to play games behind closed doors, and about 4 days later they were getting slated from a height, and it was quite possibly going to be overturned. And then the GAA came out and announced it on a Monday. Did anybody say Leitrim were ahead of the game? That were forward thinkers? It started.
A few did, to be fair. Not within Leitrim, but around the country, they did. But I think they made the right decision for the right reasons.
Yes.
And it can't have been easy. But I think the way they've managed it at games as well, and I know it's a nuisance when you're trying to get in, but I've seen people who'd be well established within the sport showing up assuming they're going to get in, that they can just a nod and a wink. And then there's a little battle axe. She's amazing on the door. I don't know if you've met her to the championship, but she literally, if you don't have a ticket, you're not getting in. And she doesn't care whether you're Willie Donlan or whether you're the Pope. You're not getting in without a ticket. And she's just, I'm paid to do the job. It's brilliant.
An awful lot of us before 2004 couldn't get into the powerhouse in Mohill without a ticket, and that'd be Annaduff and Gortletteragh now, to be honest with you.
Well, that's because you were barred, Derek.
No, look
On that note, before we go off on a complete tangent, we better wrap it up. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. The very best of luck to both teams. I hope it's a cracking game of football. We'll go for a draw and maybe decided by penalties on the day will be a nice way for both teams to finish it. Although, yeah, maybe not.
No. There's two sour faces. We agree on that one. No.
Gentlemen, thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Breifne.